convoluted, flashy, and empty, The Matrix Resurrections feels less like a proper sequel and a lot more like a mediocre software update. And trust me, it pains me to say this about one of my most anticipated films of 2021. I'm not going to get into spoilers in this video, but I am going to talk about some things that were uncovered in the trailers, so if you haven't seen the movie or the trailers yet, you may want to revisit this video at a later time. As the trailers revealed, some time has passed and Neo seems to have moved on from where we last saw him, and Trinity has no memory of their past lives. There seems to have been a glitch in the program, one that will require drawing Neo back into the previous worlds he occupied, and introducing new characters to function as his guides. I'd like to kick my video off on as much of a positive note as possible, so let's talk about the things I liked real quick. And this section is going to be pretty quick. The soundtrack for Resurrections was easily the most enjoyable part of the film for me. White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane, which is the song that played in all the trailers, almost felt like it could have been made specifically for this movie, even though it was made back in 1967. Beyond that one song, the score honestly had me a lot more excited in moments of tension than the actual visuals did. I'll expound on this later, but during the action scenes, I was hardly interested in what I was seeing, and much more entranced by what I was hearing in the score. Speaking of visuals, this is a good-looking film in terms of set design and some of the landscape images that we got, and that's ultimately why I call this movie a software update. The only real upgrade I felt on this film when compared to the previous three was just how it looked. And it was pretty. Clearly, we've advanced quite a bit since the original films came out, so it should look a lot better, and while it does, they still failed to really capitalize on the technical advancements that they had at their disposal. And it's at this point in the video I need to pivot to the things that I didn't like, and I'm gonna start with visuals. Hear me out. If you think about the success of the original Matrix film, it was largely due to the fact that they pioneered a lot of their visual effects that we hadn't seen up to that point. So it's now 2021 and films have looked incredible for many, many years. And to attempt to resurrect this franchise after all these years comes with the added challenge of having to maintain that standout reputation in a time where we see exceptional visual effects in almost every movie we watch. And the thing that really bothers me is they didn't really do anything special at all. I'd argue that every Matrix movie prior to this one executed action and fight scenes better than this one did. There's one massive close quarters fight in this movie, and it is a giant mess. You can't tell who's doing what, where people are, why one character is just standing off in the distance, yelling at them like a deranged old man.
Listen here, you loser. This isn't the last you'll see of me.
Yeah, like that. And aside from the chaos of this scene, they didn't apply the Matrix formula that we've all come to love to make this fight as special as it could have been. The falling flat of the visuals is one of the major disappointments of this film because it's a Matrix movie. The past films in this franchise have led us to expect a certain experience and feel when watching these movies, and we want them to be awesome, or at least better than average, and it just didn't happen. And look, I understand my opinions may not be super popular, but I will always be honest in my reviews. And that's why I hope you'll consider subscribing to my small channel here on YouTube and help us hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Okay, so let's address the story, which is where I really begin to struggle. It feels like this film had a hard time knowing its own identity. Is it a sequel? Is it a reboot? Is it both? I just finished watching the movie and I don't even know. What I do know is they worked really hard to let the audience know that this film is basically self-aware, and it made many references to its own past. It did it so many times that it became very old and very annoying. At one point it feels like they're telling the audience like, hey, you just got played. We just put this movie out to make money off of you, so thank you. Even though I just finished the film, I don't even know what happened. I don't feel like the Matrix story advanced at all. I mean, I know I watched a movie where things happened, but this movie added little to nothing to the Matrix franchise due to its lack of depth. As far as the writing goes, it was really bad. I felt myself physically cringing at many of the lines throughout this movie, and I felt legitimately bad for the actors that had to perform them. So not only was the plot uninteresting, but the lines that carried us throughout this movie just made for an unenjoyable experience. All right, on to the cast. Keanu is Keanu, and he plays Neo well, and he continued to do so here. And the same can be said for Carrie-Anne Moss and her performance of Trinity. Watching those two in this movie felt very similar to watching them in the previous films. Now, the additional characters making their first appearance in this film were largely forgettable. The two additional actors that I'll call out specifically are Neil Patrick Harris and Jonathan Groff. Harris exceeded my expectations, largely just because I don't really like Neil Patrick Harris. I mean, he's fine, but I don't really seek out stuff that he's in. He played his role well here and did so a lot better than many of the other actors in this movie. Jonathan Groff may have been my favorite performance, but there is a little bit of bias there because I just love everything Jonathan Groff is in. So yeah, I think he did a good job here. The one thing he suffered from was just the really bad writing. So some of the things that he did in some parts of his performance seemed bad, but I think it was just really poor writing. All right, this movie is a 2 out of 5 for me and lands in last place when ranked against the rest of the Matrix movies. Let me know your thoughts on this movie in the comments. Thanks for watching.